I know, John, in the price of fuel is inelastic and we can treble it, people will still ride. But it's not an easy problem with a 15 to 20% tax base of people who pay tax, trying to fund infrastructure for a, what do we call it, a developmental socialist state. You tell me how to do that.
Sure. Gerard will, because... no.
Toll.
Toll.
Use a pay, toll. Chairman, just the reality we have is we are not going to get congestion out of Gauteng if we don't toll. Nothing will get me out of my car until it becomes too expensive for me to be in my car.
Is there evidence to show that if there's a toll road, and I don't know, but is there evidence to show that if there's a toll road, people do reduce their travelling? Is there any evidence?
The audience that can answer you.
Is there any evidence to show that? I mean, if it was told this evening, will we only have 40 people here?
No.
Or is there any evidence to show that?
No, there is no evidence. In fact, I think, as was said earlier, the evidence is that the more roads you build, the more infrastructure you build, the more traffic uses it. However, but you are building in response to a demand. You're not creating the demand. There is a latent demand. There's a huge demand for travel, which isn't always been able to take up. So if you allow, if you ease the supply, so then yes, that demand does get taken up. But in straight answer to your question, there is no there's no evidence to say that money charging for a road reduces its cost. What people do though is divert, of course. They will, especially initially. You get a so-called you get an initial diversion, and then you get a ramp up where people start coming back when they realise that actually it's costing them more to go on the alternative than on the toll. But I'd just like to go back to a thing you said a moment ago, Mike, and that was, I say there should be no tolling at all. That is correct. But what I'm actually saying is that whether you toll, whether you put a fuel tax, whether you put a VAT, personal levy, the public pay for that infrastructure. They're paying for it anyway. So if they're going to pay for it anyway, why introduce a mechanism whereby they have to pay a lot more than they may have had to pay if it was done through another way, through collecting taxes?
The answer to your question is that if you have tolls, 100% of the population pays. If you do through the tax base, well, I mean, those are 100%. 100% of the people who use that road pays.
Right, yeah.
If you have the tax base, in other words, from an exchequer, the funds come from, is it 15% of people in this country that pay income tax? I don't know, some figure like
but
that.
every road user will pay on a fuel levy.
So what I'm trying to say, if you're going to fund roads through the exchequer, you're going to get money from your taxes, right? And only 15% of people, I think, pay taxes in this country.
But that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to the argument, Malcolm. The fact is, you need a certain amount of money.
Yes, for sure.
To run the country.
Yeah.
And how you collect that money, there are dozens of different ways of changing the tax rate. What I'm saying is that toll taxes are the worst possible method of getting that money in. Just because they cost so much.
Except the criteria that has been accepted by about 15 countries actually in this American Federal Highway, not Federal, NHCRP report suggests that of those 4 criteria, tolls exceeded or better than fuel levy in all 4.
Well, I just want to read something to you because we've had a bit of a debate about user pays. And this is the meeting that you had, Wayne, so it says which one? You've had plenty. This is with the Deputy State President, Lima Motlanthe. Said the meeting, ... concluded that government and OUTA were in agreement on the need for roads that will serve the economy and citizens, agree, the need for users to pay for road improvements. So user pays principle they put in there. I don't know whether you agreed with that, but bit of spin doctrine. Okay. The need to decongest the country's roads and the need for more efficient public transport. And that was the joint statement. So the user pays, maybe spin doctored or whatever. How do you feel about the statement?
Look, and they said that again with the Busa meeting as well. Fuel levy is a user pays principle. So it's which user pays principle are you talking about?
Correct.
And that is probably the most equitable one. And because if you've got 100,000 people using this road, they're paying more for these roads here than they are on the road from Mthatha to East London. Less and less is going to be spent then. The road is not as wide. So to try and bring this user pays into an e-toll environment, that's not what we agree with. And you can't be half pregnant on this. You either e-toll or you don't. And we must be very careful not to be suckered into, even if you reduce it down to 5 cents a kilometre, because that in 2 years will be back up where you want it to be, wherever they want it to be, it'll go. And you'll fight and kick and fight, but once it's in, there's the issue. So, and then at that price, it's just a no-brainer. It just doesn't work because you're just going to be paying the collectors to collect the money and nothing goes onto the road. So you need to be very, very careful. I also want to question around e-tolling around the world. You need to do a hell of a lot more research. The research that's coming out, and Mark Corcoran, our specialist on our team, is doing a lot of research in this space, and they are now, because it's a topic of conversation, the universities are doing a lot more research on e-tolling and tolling around the world. It is not as good as it deems to be. In fact, some of these systems are failing in Santiago and Chile, and generally in third world countries, they do not work. And there's an issue, there's a correlation to lack of trust of government, and that's a big issue here around e-tolling. Where's this money going? Show us all the contracts. Where's everything? No, we don't want to show you everything. Just believe us. I mean, that issue is serious. And where it does work, in societies where there's high compliance, there's very little compliance here. 20% of traffic fines are paid. 10 to 15% of number plates in Gauteng right now as we speak are cloned or incorrect. It's easy to go and get a number plate and switch two numbers. And e-tolling will push that up. We're anticipating to over 25%. And that's a compliance issue which is not factored into all of this. And where it has worked is areas where there's high compliance and huge consultation. London's inner city congestion resulted in huge discussions with the people, extra bus lanes, extra bus routes, extra park and rides, trains, everything was taken into account, as well as pricing. None of that took place here. So we've got a lot on.
Can I just make one point before?
Malcolm, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Save your point.
Because it's a matter of accuracy.
Accuracy, all right.
We talk about fuel levies as being a user charging mechanism. That is true, provided it is ring-fenced. If it's not ring-fenced,
Agreed.
if it goes back into general taxes, it is not user charging. If anyone is able in this country right now to get the government to reinstate the National Road Fund ring-fenced, I will shout for joy. I don't think anyone will manage to do that. So fuel tax is not a user charging mechanism.
Okay. Thanks, Malcolm, for correcting that. We're going to open the floor. What I'd like you to do, if you ask a question, if you could just say your name and then ask. And if you want to point it to someone specific on the panel, that's fine. If it's a general question, we'll just choose who is most appropriate.
You did make a statement about making it more expensive would take people off the roads. It is true because my name's Frank. I'm a consultant. I'm on the road the whole time. I've been on the road for almost 12 years now. So, yes, it would make me drive less. I'd have to look at my distance, etc., etc. Yet, if it comes too expensive for me to do my job, where am I going to sit then? Because what it will do is, especially people younger than what I am, I'm 28, so that age bracket of 20 to 30, what you'll be looking at is now the parents have to fund the youth in order to help them get to work or do whatever. And that becomes a problem because there's no other alternatives. And, yeah.
I'd like two people to answer that.
I can quickly respond. I think that the key here is we need to provide alternatives. I think we should protest for alternatives, not against tolling. We should protest until we have proper alternatives in terms of public transport. PRASA should get their act together. I should feel safe to take PRASA, which I'm not at the moment doing, but when I was your age, I did take At those days, it was the metro lines. We did that from Boksburg to Joburg or Pretoria to Joburg. I worked in Joburg. I used the train. So we should be able to do that, but that's the issue. I'm asking and pleading for, let's identify the right issue and then look for that solution, not for the wrong issue and then, or just protest against something which in fact can help us to get there. My second comment is, I think we need to understand, if we do not maintain or manage congestion, our arterials are going to choke and there won't be jobs because we won't be able to get to our jobs. I mean, it's fair to say I need to travel on my road, but if it takes you 2 or 3 hours in the morning to get to your destination, you cannot do your work. And the easiest then will be to say, well, let's get the people who use those roads into charge for them. That's my comment.
John, you want to say something?
Yeah, Chair, thanks. Of course, what you're saying is, okay, it'll get to a point where it gets so expensive that you can't do your job anymore. But it's not as simple as that. And the reason is that if it gets more expensive, your consumer price index goes up. Your cost of delivering goods to the shops goes up. The cost of food and the cost of everything else goes up. So you go to your boss and say, listen, boss, it's now costing me more. I need more money. So it's not just a simple, if the fuel price goes up, you'll also want more money and you'll probably get more money. Plus the government will give you your money back on any fuel that you buy through your car allowance.
But they will charge you more tax in the process.
Well, of course. But what I'm saying is there's no straight line relationship between the price and the amount of travel you do.
Can I comment on that as well?
Yes.
On that urban problem that you have. Two things. Firstly, we must accept or remember that 80% of public transport is on roads. It's not on rail. But it should be not like that. It should at least, of the major routes, at least 40 to 50% should be on metro, on urban, on rail. The metro systems we have. Now, we made a big mistake in this country a long time ago, I think. We made lots of mistakes. But we did not go ahead with a project called Mastran. Mastran was a rail-based, not subway, because only parts of it went underground, but a rail-based passenger transit system which wasn't high-speed like our train. Once you put high speed onto it, it probably triples or quadruples the cost. This system was designed by Mott Hay, a British consultant who had a lot to do with British Underground. It was equivalent of a London Underground system at the same stage that London was as Johannesburg was in. For various reasons, I'm not going to go into them, I know the reason, but I can't tell them in public here, it was stopped. That penetrated Alexandra, it penetrated Soweto, it penetrated the CBD. If we had have built that, John, 25 years ago, that sort of time, you wouldn't have your problem. We'd have an equivalent of a London subway system, if I can call it that way, in relation to the size of Johannesburg versus London.
Hello, my name is Gert van Eeren. It seems to me that the toll fees was introduced to solve a treasury problem, not to solve a road building problem. Just want to know that toll fees have been calculated to generate a certain amount of revenue per annum. Now, if we get the people out of the roads, off the roads into the public transport, and the number of cars reduces per day or per annum, then that revenue is going to drop. Does it mean then that the toll fees will have to be increased to still maintain that revenue per annum? The other question is impact on other sections of the economy, tourism. We know most of the Gauteng people on the weekend, they go out to some lodge in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, wherever. If we take away a lot of that capital from the people, they're not going to go to those lodges. So you're going to have a drop in tourism, job losses, etc. And I think the other cost implications on NATIS R2, for example, if you have a non-compliance rate of 40%, can you imagine how many registered mail items the RTIA must send out? How many representation officers they will have to appoint? How many courtesy letters must be issued? How many enforcement orders must be issued? And if the people just elect to go to court, which is the option in R2, they will just flood the courts and you cannot do anything about it.
I don't think that was so much of a question as a statement.
But Mike, just
Any
to
comment
reiterate,
on it?
those are very valid comments.